Hello and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia. I'm your host, Tommy McIntyre Jr. Well, the Philadelphia 76ers unfortunately snapped a 3-game winning streak to the Boston Celtics. We'll be talking that as well as kind of the controversy and mayhem that's going on with Brian Colangelo and Jahlil Okafor and the entire Sixers organization. And then we're going to talk about the other team at Wells Fargo Center, the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, they've been on a skid. They don't seem like they're playing well at all, and they're dropping farther and farther out of wild card contention. So we're going to be talking all that and more after this.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hello and welcome back. Well, let's get right into it, why don't we? Let's talk 76ers basketball here in Philadelphia, and I got a great panel to start us off with Kevin Cook to my left. Thank you so much for joining. He's going to be on All Show once again. The co-producer is now the main guest coming on Sports Talk Philadelphia. And then look who's at the end of this. Oh, is this Steven Celesto Jr.? First time. He's a freshman. He's coming on Sports Talk for the first time. Thank you so much for joining us to talk some Sixers. And then we're going to have Dana Bakura on later to talk some Philadelphia Flyers. Well, let's get into it, right, don't we? Let's get the graphic up about the Sixers' record right now. They had 3 wins in a row, actually. Considering the fact that Embiid's been out for a while now, they were able to string some great victories in this last stretch, and especially that had to do with Darius Saric. Over the last week, he's averaged over 20 points a game and close to 10 boards. He's averaging pretty much a double-double this last week. It's been really impressive to see, considering that, I mean, he struggled early on the season. This is a guy that played overseas for loads, I mean, considering before the season, playing even in the Olympics as well. So, Kevin, just talk about his play especially and how that's helped the team in Embiid's absence really get some victories.
Yeah, well, he's definitely stepped up over the last couple of games, especially in the absence of Joel Embiid. And it's kind of nice to see him coming over and finally starting to get the full aspect of what his game is really like. Obviously, we didn't have him for, I think it was 2 seasons there after we drafted him, but it's starting to look like the move that Sam Hinkie made, trading back to make sure that we got him at 12, was the right move, because I was looking at the picks the other day, and some of the players that they got in that draft were players like that went before him. The only ones that were really worth it were Julius Randle. So, I mean, we ended up getting Stauskas too out of that draft too later on via a trade with Sacramento. But it looks like Hinkie played the moves right that game that year in the draft, and he's really stepped up for us lately, and it's nice to see that.
Yeah, I think definitely when you look at the fact that it took so many years to get a guy like Joel Embiid and Darius Saric in that draft, that's always been the thing that I think ultimately made Hinkie kind of get out of town or rushed him out of town, considering they never got those guys on the court. But let's go to you, Steven. Talking about Dario and maybe even some of the other guys like T.J. McConnell, Covington, Nerlens Noel. These guys have really stepped up their game in Embiid's absence, and obviously McConnell says it after games and pretty much how this team is just not the same without Embiid. But what have you seen from their kind of fight during this last stretch?
Well, you've seen it during the last stretch, mainly with T.J. McConnell. He used to have a lot better stats with Embiid out there, but he's playing the same amount of minutes now, and he's having the equal numbers. He's still having his little over 10 points per game, and he's still having these 7 to 8 assists a game. So they're building the team, and they really are doing well against the Hornets and the Celtics. They had 6 different players in double digits. They have not had that in a while, considering they had some, but like they're having consistency and a lot of players stepping up. Henderson is also another guy. He's now averaging over 10 points per game in the last 4. They're just, each guy, nobody's becoming a star. They're all stepping up a little bit, and that's what they needed right now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this credit has to go to Brett Brown. I mean, I think really he's been kind of the guy at the center of all this over this whole Hinkie turmoil and just everything that the Sixers are going through in the media, in the mainstream media at large. Brett Brown has always been that guy to look to. He's always had respect throughout the league, especially like a guy like Greg Popovich, who always says he looks for, he always was one of his favorite coaches and people in the league. Kevin, let's start though, let's talk about the bad things that are going on with the Sixers, and it starts with Jahlil Okafor. I mean, this whole situation is not looking favorable to the Sixers in terms of just a PR statement. What is the organization doing, starting with maybe Brian Colangelo and this whole thing with trading Jaleel?
Well, you're definitely seeing a lot of things coming up. What I don't know, are they considered false reports or what? But you're hearing reports coming out that the Sixers have a number of teams asking for Jaleel Okafor. And it doesn't surprise anybody, as he's a good talent to have and a good player that a lot of teams are probably interested in. However, when you're hearing this, and then at the same time you're also hearing other teams saying like, oh, we're not really that interested, that's starting to drive down the price of Okafor. And as a Sixers fan and somebody that's looking to get the maximum return for what was the number 1 in the draft, the third overall pick in the draft, you're looking to get the best return for that as possible. And it doesn't look like it's going to happen with the way that things have been unfolding lately. Hopefully he's able to use some of these things coming up, like the recent game last night. He didn't play well at all. But if he continues to get time on the court, and he is still going to be playing in the Rising Stars game, so if he plays well there and then maybe plays well in some of these games that follow the All-Star break, hopefully we can move him for a valuable piece.
Now, Stephen, you're a guy I've talked to that says you think Jaleel is a starting center in this league. You think that him and Nerlens are kind of, if you actually gave Jaleel some starting minutes, he would be the better of the two. Now, I may disagree with you, but give me why you think he is a valuable player in this league, and what his offensive game brings to a team, and what do you just think of this whole situation going on?
Well, right now, Jaleel Okafor is, I think, still a starting caliber center. But how he is with the Sixers, how they set up their offense, he doesn't really work that well anymore. And that's why I have now transitioned. Like, Noel is the better for the Sixers right now, especially when Embiid comes back, because the two of them worked. And Okafor and Embiid, that was a failure. They tested that in December. But Okafor has the offense. Like, he's got the body that he could post a guy up. And, like, I know, like, he's not a great defensive player, but not a lot of centers nowadays are great defensive players. Defense is on the way out. Like, not many people are playing defense anymore. Like, James Harden is known, he might be an MVP caliber, does not play defense. So some of the centers can transition well, but not all centers are great defensive players too. I still think he could play because his offense is good enough.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's an interesting point. I would argue, and I guess you're kind of agreeing with this statement now, is the fact that Nerlens' defense is giving the Sixers something they need right now, considering that I think that is the part of their – I think Brett Brown is a type of coach who really cares about defense. He's talked about since he's been here, and although Embiid is kind of that dominant force when he's with the team, Nerlens kind of takes that reign when he would come off the bench. And it's interesting to see kind of what is going to happen, also considering other guys. And we can talk about, we talked about Embiid, kind of bring up his situation. The recent reports last week is that he won't be in the Rising Stars Challenge now. He has a minor tear in his meniscus. It just seems like bad news. I'm going to be honest, though, when I saw that injury he suffered against the Trailblazers, when he hurt his knee, came back hurt again, the first time around, it did not look good. I mean, I've seen terrible knee injuries, and it looked like it could have been an ACL tear. And we've seen the last couple weeks in the NBA, guys like Zach LaVine, Jabari Parker re-tearing the same ACL he tore a couple years ago. So those are, I mean, that's a serious thing. This is a guy in Embiid who is the franchise in many ways. Hopefully Ben Simmons is the next guy up as well, can help us. But what do you just think of all this going on with Embiid and just the injuries in general?
You know, it's definitely scary when you're seeing your star player going down like that. And obviously with a player who's taken 2 years just to come and play for the team, it's not something you want to see. But with that being said, the same thing, I had the same reaction as you did, Tommy. The initial injury was very gruesome looking. He really just bent his knee almost backwards, and it was not pleasant to watch, and it was kind of reminding of like some of the other bad injuries that we've seen suffered by like Paul George in the Olympics a couple years back. But like you were saying, it's not something you want to see, and you're hoping that he's able to get back on the floor because the team is struggling as of right now. I mean, not lately, but they weren't playing good teams as of lately. Yeah. When they play a good team, like they played Boston, they were in the game. They came back. They tied it up 101 to 101, but the offense struggles down at the end of the game, and that's where a player like Joel Embiid, or hopefully when Ben Simmons comes back, if he comes back this year, that's hopefully where those two players can take over the game, put the team on their back, and get buckets for this team down the stretch of the game, which is where the game is won.
Yeah, I mean, the Sixers are sitting right now at 21-35. I mean, this is the best record they've had for the All-Star break in years, considering we won 10 games all of last year. I guess, Steven, to go with you off his kind of his point of the injuries and what this means, I mean, what is the Sixers' long-term plans here? Obviously, the playoffs are probably, they're not going to make the playoffs this season. They're going to have a good shot of winning over 30, 35 games this year. That's a great progress for sure, considering the fact that Embiid hasn't even played all those games. But yeah, what do you see the long-term mindset for the Sixers right now? They're still in great shape, still have loads of draft picks and options here. Obviously, this Jahlil Okafor situation, it definitely doesn't look good on their part. You could argue that drafting a bunch of big men put them in that situation, but
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think of the entire situation?
Well, I think this year they're looking to get like 30 wins. That's 9 more in the last 26. But I think with the 30 wins, they'll probably have like the 6th or 7th overall pick. And then you're also going to look, they still have the Lakers pick, top 3 protected. Lakers are currently sitting at number 3, so you just need one person to jump them in the lottery. And they could get the 4th overall pick with that. And hopefully with that, they need to get a shooting guard to really just stand outside and shoot. Like Covington is kind of doing that right now, but he's more of a small forward position. And when Ben Simmons comes back, he'll be a point forward, taking that small forward spot. So it'll be interesting to see how Covington works in that situation. But they need to work on their guards in this draft, I think, with possibly 1 or 2 first-round picks. And then they're expecting with Okafor, they're expecting to get some kind of picks if they trade him anytime soon, hopefully for a first-rounder or another good player. And you also got to look at other free agents that have said stuff. Like Drew Holiday has said he wants to come back to Philly. That doesn't mean he's coming, but that means he's just expressing interest. And not many free agents lately have said they want to come to Philly. And now that people are seeing. Fans are getting excited, so you want to play for this franchise right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of dynamics going on. You're seeing the great things happening with the team, and then you're seeing the off-the-court kind of stuff. It's still confusing, I think. I think a lot of people, the media was always on a guy like Hinkie for being very, non-giving away a lot of information. But, I mean, to the fans, the people that, they're still probably the trust the processors would say he told you what he was going to do, and he did what he was saying. I mean, I think the Okafor thing was the big deal that always affected people, because as soon as we drafted Okafor that year and didn't really do anything else, there was guys like Porzingis on the board, and some people would say, he's a foreign player, he wasn't a guy. But knowing Hinkie, that's a possibility. But there's reports of people want to work with him. And so now you have a guy, Colangelo, who has respect throughout the league. Obviously his dad does the stuff with the Olympics. But Kevin, just kind of talk about just how you think, going off of Steven's point, of this team overall and how they can bring in assets in terms of draft picks and free agents in the coming years.
Well, I'm hoping that Colangelo, and especially the father Colangelo, Jerry Colangelo, he brings more high-profile looks from the players, because he's a guy that is involved with U.S. basketball for the Olympics. So I'm hoping maybe that connection with the Olympics allows some of these players who are more of the elite kind, he attracts their attention. As for Brian Colangelo, I'm not really impressed with what he's done. Obviously, like you were saying, we haven't really heard much from Colangelo as far as a press conference, and it's kind of similar to the way that it was when we had Hinkie here. So I'm not really sure what the difference in bringing Brian Colangelo in was from what we had with Hinkie. However, with that being said, I do think that some of the moves that Colangelo made to bring in some veterans like Ersan Ilyasova and Gerald Henderson, I think those have been terrific moves on his part. So hopefully he finds some more hidden gems like those guys, where we're not really giving up a whole lot in young players and draft picks to bring them in. And actually, going back to what Steven was saying, I kind of look at what Covington is, and I think he's here to stay, because he's going to be kind of like in my opinion, a Thabo Sabalosha type of player when OKC was relevant. And even though he might not be the best scorer, although you couldn't tell that from last night, even though he might not be the best scorer that this team has, he might be starting over the better scorer because of the defense that he brings. Right now, he leads the league in deflections. And the way that this team runs is through their defense. So hopefully we see a whole lot more of that moving forward, as far as how the team looks to build off of some of these players that they have right now.
Yeah, I can't say it any better myself. I want to thank Steven Celestio Jr. for coming on. That's going to do it for Sixers Talk. Kevin's going to stick around for Flyers Talk. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
2, 1, action. You may think a guy would be producing this, but I can too.
Anyone can find a cure.
Women are being downgraded for their physical ability, but you can be just as strong.
%20 of women are engineers, but it doesn't stop there.
I'm a tech girl. I'm a tech girl.
I am a tech girl.
I am a tech girl.
SportsTalk Philadelphia. Well, the Philadelphia Flyers so far this season are 27, 23, and 7, 61 points on the year. They're sitting right there at the edge of the wild card, right behind the Toronto Maple Leafs. We can actually bring the graphic up, but before that, let's bring in our new guest, Dana Pecora, coming on to talk Flyers. Thank you so much for joining us. We also have Kevin Cook sticking around as well. But yeah, we can bring up the graphic real quick just to kind of go over what's been going on. So we got guys like Schenn and Cousins. Schenn 16 goals and 19 assists, 35 points in the year, and Cousins coming on with 14 points. Obviously, this team struggled as of late. I think before the Christmas or the holiday break, this team was on the up and up. They definitely were coming off like a 10-game winning streak. It was looking positive for them. And then obviously they hit a wall, and their offense is falling off tremendously. Giroux was struggling. Dana, let's start with you. Just give your thoughts on kind of what has occurred and is happening to this team as of right now.
Well, they can't score. I mean, it's not like we don't have the individual talent. We obviously have the offensive talent because the beginning of the season, all we did was score, and our defense was not that great. So it's frustrating. I mean, Giroux's in his slump, Simmons, like these scores that we relied on they're not putting it in the net, and that's a problem. And it seems that like Neuwirth's doing well, our defense is doing pretty well, but we can't seem to have both sides doing well at the same time. And I think that's what we're struggling with. We can't score. Yeah,
I mean, and Kevin, the last game against Calgary, I mean, pretty much it was a 2-1 game. Obviously, the last one was an empty net goal, so there's another close one. Neuwirth was in net. He played pretty well. I mean, kept them in the game. They just were not able to get more scoring opportunities and be able to tie the game back up.
Yeah, I mean, we saw them score the first goal the other night, and actually, even when the Flyers score the first goal, they're really not all that great of a team. You see other teams like the Capitals, when they score the goal first, they're over 800%. If they score first, they win the game. But for the Flyers, they're just barely over 500. So when you see that, it's very discouraging because you know that at any given point, the goalies, the defense could just slack off, and they could just give up 3 goals in a matter of a couple of minutes. And it wasn't a couple of minutes last night, but it happened over the rest of the game as they took an early lead, but they just were not able to bounce back after giving up 2 goals after that.
Now, Dana, going off Kevin's point about how this team is just not showing any ability to really score and then jump on that lead and put in more pressure on opponents. What do you think that is? Is that coaching? Is that a culture thing? What do you think has to change in that department? Is there something that can happen? Is it a guy like Giroux that just has to step up? Maybe he can be that force that as a captain to try to change the team's morale, or is there something, or what could happen?
I think it's our leading players like Simmons and Giroux who are just in their funks. And I mean, it happens. It's happening a little too long though. I mean, it's been a couple too many games, but they just need to step up. They need to put the puck in the net. That's what it comes down to. Because it's like I said, it's not like we don't have the talent. It's not like You know, so I mean, I know Konechny is hurt, but at the same time, we do have our older players who are still, you know, our best players. They haven't aged out yet, so they shouldn't be, you know, falling like this. So.
Heading forward, Kevin, what do you see from this team? Do you think they can turn it around? Do you think guys like Simmons and especially like Giroux can get out of this hole they've been in terms of their scoring droughts? Or do you think this is going to be a continued thing for the rest of the year and they're going to be kind of weighing on that wild card spot and maybe possibly, I think you recently said you don't think they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know if they can turn it around. I was hoping that the game over the weekend was going to be the game that they could use kind of as a leaping board. However, I don't really think that that's going to happen, especially after what they showed last night. They're not really playing all that great as a unit. They're not winning the faceoffs. I've already talked about how they're not winning when they score first, and that's a huge part in hockey. And another thing that's wrong with them is that they're not able to, like, their plus-minus is atrocious. There's only one player on this team that has a positive plus-minus, and that's Matt Reed. And he's not even getting that much time anymore compared to what we've been seeing out of him from recent years. So I think that that's a huge reason that the team's not playing all that great right now is because they're just not scoring enough to make up for the lack of defense that the team has. We've seen Gostisbehere struggle this year mightily at that too. He's minus 20 on the season, and that is not what we saw from him last year. And like Dana was saying, the leadership is not, especially on the offensive side of the puck, is not there for this Flyers team. So I don't know what they can do to fix that. Hopefully it's something that Hackstall or possibly Hextall can change via a trade or maybe just a talk, but we haven't seen that from them yet. So I don't think that there's anything that we will see from them.
Now, Dana, going off that point about pretty much just the team looking at players from the past seasons kind of falling off. Is that something that we might have to see for the forward future, or could we possibly hopefully see them get out of this rut, or are guys just going to be who they are and maybe they kind of just fallen off and they're not going to get back to that point?
I mean, it's hard to say. Like I said, I don't think these guys are aged out yet, to be quite honest with you, but we won't know until, you know, the future. I mean, if they get out of it, that's great, and I think that they could be really strong players. If not, then maybe that is the case. Maybe they are just getting old and it's just their time is just done. But I think it's hard to say until we look forward. And, like, as a fan, that's really disheartening because you don't know, like, so.
Absolutely. Well, still a lot of season to play. I mean, All-Star break just ended, so it's not over yet. They're still only a couple points out behind the Maple Leafs in the wild card, but that's going to do it for Flyers talk. Let's get right into Fast Five, and we're going to start with Dana, a little bit also with the Flyers. They got the Oilers next. Do you think they picked a win? You are good luck for them. I feel you picked them to win the show, and they get a W. So, were you thinking yes?
Yeah, I think this is the game. They're gonna get out of their slump. I mean, it's not gonna be easy because Oilers have really great offensive talent, but I think we're gonna do it.
Going to you, Kevin, back to the Sixers. So reports recently, kind of conflicting things about Ben Simmons and his foot injury. Some people are saying, media source saying, doesn't look like he's going to play. I look at articles every other week, and it says doesn't look like he's going to play. Maybe better off to sit him. I think recently Kareem Abdul-Jabbar even said it's probably just smarter to sit him. This guy has some great talent. But then as recently as this, maybe early this week, Brett Brown said he believes that he's going to see Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons on the floor by the end of this year. What do you think? Do you think Ben Simmons is on the floor here in Philly by the end of the season?
Shortly, no. I just don't think he's going to play. I don't know. I want to see him play. However, I just don't think that they're going to put him out there and have him play limited minutes because I don't see how that helps him.
Absolutely. All right, going back to Dana with the Flyers. So obviously we talked a lot about players that have not done too well. Who has been, I mean, maybe the person you think will get out of this rut first? Do you think it's I mean, obviously Simmons has had a good year. Do you think, even though he's struggling recently, that he could get out of this and he's going to be a spark? And maybe even a Giroux, or do you think it may be worse?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I think if it's going to be anyone first, it's going to be Simmons. He's just such a leader on the team. People look to him. I mean, so is Giroux, but I think we've seen Simmons just really be, you know, great. So I think he's going to be the first one, and then hopefully Giroux will follow. And I mean, Nick Cousins has been playing great. Shen's been playing great. So I guess we'll just have to see.
Now, Kevin, talking the Sixers, obviously we talked about Okafor in Sixers talk. When do you think the trade deadline he will be gone, and what do you think is probably the best thing we can get from him? Is it a player, is it a young guard in this league, which would probably be hard to get, or do you think it's maybe a future first-round pick? What do you think?
I definitely think that Okafor is going to be gone by the trade deadline. As far as what we're going to get in return, I don't really know if it's going to be a younger player. I kind of lean more towards it's going to be draft picks. And I think sooner or later you're going to see a team either like Boston or possibly New Orleans cave and give the Sixers what they want. Because even though I'm not a huge fan of Okafor, he fits on other teams. He just doesn't fit on this team. So no matter how poorly he plays here, other teams know that he's going to fit for their offense.
And we're going to finish it with Dana. The Philadelphia Flyers, obviously we talked about how they're still in the playoff hunt. We asked Kevin last week, do they make the playoffs? What are your thoughts? Do you think they can still maybe get in here? Obviously it doesn't look too good, but do you think they can maybe sneak in that last wildcard spot?
With the way it's looking right now, I don't think so, and that hurts to say, but just we don't have it offensively. It's not there. And Neuwirth, like our goalies, they're not consistent. So I don't think so. I know.
It's so depressing. We were so I remember before winter break, we were so thrilled about this team. It looked like they had some good fight in them after that huge winning streak, and then it just kind of fell off. Then the Sixers got good, then Embiid got hurt, and now it's like everyone. It's Philadelphia sports, man. This is SportsTalk Philadelphia. That's where you got to come for this to see us all depressed. But that's going to do it for SportsTalk Philadelphia. I want to thank Steven Silvestro Jr. I've been calling him Silvestro by accident. I apologize. Kevin Cook, Dana Pecora. I got her name right. That's all I have to do. But you can check us on SportsTalk Philadelphia. You can check this all on SportsTalk LTV. That's our new Twitter handle. You can see some stuff. Maybe we tweet every once in a while. We have to get a little better at that, but that's a brand new Twitter account for us. You can get us on LaSalle TV, YouTube. You get us on Facebook as well. Please join in. Really appreciate you all the love, all the help, and all the people watching. And that's going to do it. Catch us next time on SportsTalk Philadelphia.